Breakfast and Learn. Unfortunately, our hostess and the chair of this committee, Breakfast and Learn, is our guest speaker tonight, this morning. So I am going to introduce her. We do this every month, the Breakfast and Learn with HACOF, with the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida. I would like to thank our board member for attending. We have Carmen Plaisir, we have Dr. Lumana Joseph, our vice chair, Hervé Boni, Jeff Lozama, Christelle Kansky, welcome. This is your first official board member, well, online or virtual. Welcome and thank you. Today we're going to talk about business immigration post-COVID. Patricia Elizee is our board member. She's also the chair of the committee, like I said, and she is going to give us a lot of information. So, since we're already behind schedule, I will do the introduction because she has a lot to tell you about this. Patricia Elizee is a managing partner of Elizee Law Firm, PA, a firm dedicated to serving its client and the community. She does immigration law and also family law. Ms. Elizee is a former president of the Haitian Lawyers Association. In 2016, she was voted valedictorian of the Haitian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida, first top 20 under 40 class, and currently serves as a board member of the chamber. She was appointed to the Hispanic Advisory Board of Miami-Dade County by Commissioner Jean Modestin. Ms. Elizee is also a graduate of the prestigious Florida Bar Leadership Academy. She currently serves as a board chair of the Immigration Committee of the Dade County Bar Association. In 2017, the Miami Herald chose Ms. Elizee to participate in their CEO Roundtable Series, where leaders in the business community are asked to answer business questions for their readers. Ms. Elizee was formerly a legal fellow of American Immigration Justice, where she handled a diverse caseload. As far as her background in educational, she has at bar, the state of Florida Bar, Southern District of Florida. She attended University of Washington School of Law. She also got a law degree JD with University of Miami with honors, University of Miami BS in communication. She has a multiple publication in the Miami Herald, Jamaicans.com, Florida Bar Family Law Section commentator, Sun Sentinel, DCBA Bulletin. She received multiple awards as well. Top 20 under 40, Young Professional, Valedictorian, Haitian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida. Spotlight Award, Florida Bar Family Law Section, Law Alumni Leadership Award, University of Miami Law Alumni Association. Hi. Entrepreneur of the Year, I hope to say that, Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. Quiet Storm Achievement Legal Award, Women Power Caucus. She did a few presentations. She's also a professional. She also has a professional association, American Immigration Law Association, Haitian Lawyers Association, Dade County Bar Association, Hispanic Affair Advisory Board of Miami-Dade County, HAAB, the Florida Bar Family Law Section, the Florida Bar Young Lawyers Division, Haitian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida, Florida Bar. And then now she spoke a few languages. She's fluent in Creole, English, and then of course, French. I would like to welcome Patricia Elizee, our board member, our chair of this monthly series of Learning with HACOF. Every month, she's the hostess of this wonderful, prominent workshop that we do every month. And then welcome, Patricia, and then thank you so much for doing everything.
Thank you, Paola. So thank you for that great introduction. I'm actually really excited to be speaking today. So as you mentioned, I'm involved with the committee that puts on these monthly events for the chamber. And it's really an opportunity for us to give back to our members, for members to share their expertise with each other. And today, with everything going on with immigration, all the uncertainties, it's important that we educate our community and that people just really kind of understand where we are, especially post COVID-19. So there's no secret that the President Trump has used immigration really as a political weapon. Even before he was elected, during his campaign, he made it known that his aim was to really limit immigration, and he's really delivered on that promise. There is a New York Times article that stated that if things keep going the way that they're going now, by next year, by 2021, the Trump administration would have had limited immigration by 49% overall, which is very telling. So the Trump administration did that by doing a couple of different things. The first thing that they did was they targeted illegal immigration, right? So they focused on immigrants coming in through the borders. They made it a lot harder for refugees to apply for asylum. Now the refugees are being detained. They're no longer being released into the community. The Trump administration has changed the ICE, the focus of ICE and their priorities for deportation. So under the Obama administration, for example, the people who were priorities for deportations were immigrants with criminal backgrounds, with serious criminal convictions. But under the Trump administration, everyone is now a deportation priority. So regardless of how long you've been in the US, regardless of whether you have a deportation order or not, under the Trump administration, he's made it that every single immigrant is a priority for deportation. Something else that he's done to also limit immigration is to really focus on the different business visas that are available. So he's made a lot of changes, for example, to the H-1B program. The H-1B program is available for people who went to college, who have at least a 4-year degree, either a bachelor's or a master's, that are able to come to the US. For 2020, that program was reduced quite significantly, and it was made a lot harder for people to apply. He's also changed the EB-5 program, which is a program where people invest a large sums of money to actually be able to get their green cards in the US. So I say all of this to just point out everything that he did before COVID-19. Now, with the COVID-19 pandemic, he's really launched to that. He's really used it as a pretext, as a tool to limit immigration even more. So a lot of changes has been done, especially since January of this year. But what we're going to be focused on today are a couple of different things. The first one being the travel bans that are in place, the presidential proclamations that are currently in place as well, along with the business visas and how they're impacted by what's going on with COVID-19. We can also touch base on USCIS. What is the current state of USCIS? What is the current state of the State Department? And also what's going on in the consulates. A lot of people have questions about, well, when can I go and pick up my visa at the US consulate in Haiti? When can I pick it up at the US consulate in Canada? Is everyone working the same way? And I know that some people, I get a lot of questions from people who are physically here in the US and they really are not able to leave the United States due to COVID. So if anyone has a question, please go ahead and submit it in our chat. And Paula, just go ahead and interrupt me if you see a question, and I'll be happy to answer as we go. And we'll be sure to have time at the end as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. So our first focus is going to be the travel bans. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding as to what exactly happened with the travel restrictions that the president put in place. The focus of the travel bans is to limit the spread of COVID-19. Now, this is really important because his presidential proclamations have a different focus. The travel bans, the first one was instituted on January 31st of this year. And I'm sure everyone remembers the headlines. Trump closes borders to Chinese immigrants, or Trump closes borders to China. Then later on in February, he did another travel ban for Iran. In March, there was a travel ban for the Schengen countries. The Schengen countries are all of the European countries that are together, so the 26 European countries. And later on in March, he added the United Kingdom and Ireland. So I'll talk about all of them together, but I just want to point out the different ones that we have in place currently. So we have a travel ban against China, Iran, all of the European countries, including the United Kingdom and Ireland. Brazil was also added to the list later on in March. So what's important to understand is the travel bans are not against the citizens of those different countries. So if you're a Chinese citizen living in South America, are you going to be banned from coming to the US because there's a travel restrictions aimed at China? No. What they're targeting are people who are physically in those countries for at least 14 days. So you'll see, for example, for China, it says, if you were physically in China for 14 days prior to your entry to the United States, then you're not able to come in because the aim is to restrict the spread of COVID-19. So the Trump administration identified different either areas, geographic areas or countries where they believed that there was a higher risk of contracting the coronavirus. And if you were to come to the United States, it would put us in danger. But they were really focused on making sure that they were restricting the spread of the virus. So, but there are also a lot of exceptions. If you're a US citizen, this ban does not apply to you. If you're a lawful permanent resident, this ban does not apply to you either. If you're a spouse of the USC, of a US citizen, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a member of the armed forces, if you're traveling for government purposes. So there's a large group of people where that ban does not apply to. So how do you work if you are wanting to travel to the United States, if you have family abroad, if you're a business person, but you were physically in China, you were physically in Brazil or in the European countries, how do you go ahead and come to the US? You're still allowed to come to the United States. However, you have to plan your travel. You may have to travel to a third country for at least those 14 days before coming to the United States. And something that you also have to keep in mind are, what are the travel restrictions in the country that you're physically in? Because when Trump supposedly closed the borders, it's not that he closed the borders, he just put in this restriction that has a lot of these exceptions, but also the European countries also put in some closures. For example, as you guys know, Haiti had closed down its borders. A lot of different countries closed down its borders. So a lot of people were stuck abroad, not necessarily because of the travel bans put in place by the administration, but because of a lot of different factors. Because of the country that they were in had travel restrictions, because a lot of airlines were very confused as to what they were supposed to do, what laws to follow. So a lot of them shut down so that they can plan and come back with how to properly fly under these new restrictions with COVID. Now, what's putting the travel bans aside, what we should focus on is the presidential proclamations. Now, these presidential proclamations, they've put a suspension as to which visas are going to be issued and who's going to be able to physically come to the United States with a status. So the first presidential proclamation that was put in place was in April of 2020. And the focus of the presidential proclamation is to safeguard our US labor market. And this is really important to kind of focus on. And actually, I wanted to share some of the language from the proclamation with you guys so that you guys understand, according to the Trump administration, why they put in this restriction. So they stated that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a toll on the US economy with national unemployment claims that have reached historic levels. We must be mindful of the impact of foreign workers on the US labor market, particularly in an environment of high domestic unemployment and depressed demand on labor. What's interesting is he actually points out that he's putting in these restrictions on who's able to come in with a green card or who's able to come in later on, because the proclamation expanded to not only green card holders, but also business visas. According to his proclamation, the aim of this is to protect people who are marginalized. So people who are first out of the economic contraction. So especially African Americans, minorities, people without college degrees, and those that are disabled. So it's interesting to see the Trump administration using minorities, using people with disabilities to really support this really harsh immigration policy that they've put in place. So for their proclamation of April 22nd, their focus was to limit new immigrant visas. That means they're suspending new green cards to be issued. An immigrant visa is a visa that allows someone to come and actually immigrate and live in the United States. A non-immigrant visa is someone who's coming for a temporary basis. So according to this proclamation, anyone who's outside of the United States as to the proclamation. So if you're physically here in the US, you're married to a US citizen, and you're in the process of getting your green card, this does not impact you, right? Other people that are not impacted, if you're physically outside of the US and you're already a green card holder, you're not going to be impacted. If you're a spouse of a US citizen waiting to come in with a green card, you're not going to be impacted, or if you're a child of a US citizen as well, along with other categories. What's interesting to point out is if you're a family member of a lawful permanent resident and you are waiting for a green card abroad, because of this proclamation, you will not be able to come into the US until this is no longer in place. Now, the question that's really interesting for us to think about is the aim that this proclamation has, which is supposedly to protect the US labor market. Does this really do that? Does this really deliver that? I think that it doesn't. The United States Chamber of Commerce has actually filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration because they're using the labor market as a pretext to restrict immigration into the US. So there we go. At first, the initial suspension was going to be for 60 days, but it was extended until the end of this year in April, on April 23rd of 2020. And the first suspension applies not only to people getting their green cards from families, but also to immigrants that have pending green card applications from employment opportunities. Now, in June of 2020, the Trump administration actually expanded their suspension, but this time it was to non-immigrant visas. So these are for people who are coming in with work visas. So if you were physically outside of the US as of June 22nd, and you didn't already have an approved visa petition to work, you will be impacted by this proclamation. And the people that they're focused on are especially right here, the H-1B program, the H-2B program. So the H-1B are for immigrants, and this is a large pool of young professionals where you have a 4-year degree and you want to come to the United States to work for a company. The company sponsors you and you're able to come in and actually work on your visa without having to go through a Department of Labor analysis, etc. So because of this proclamation, hundreds of thousands of professionals will no longer be able to take advantage of the H-1B program. The L-1A program are executive and managers as well, and L1 and L-1Bs are specialized workers. What's interesting to point out is who is exempt from this proclamation are people that are, again, spouses of US citizen, children of US citizen. If you already had a visa that was issued to you before that date, or if you're able to show that even though you do qualify under the category of people that you're not able to come in, but you have some national interest, you're doing something that's tied to law enforcement, you're working on COVID-19, you're in the medical field, etc., the consulate is still going to be able to give you that visa. However, it's very important for people to understand that there's a lot more to what's going on versus what you see on Twitter, what you see in the newspapers. Because if you just take snapshots of it, you think, okay, immigration is completely shut down. There's nothing going on. If I want a business visa, I'm not able to come in. If I want to hire someone, I'm not going to be able to hire them. That is not the case. A lot of business visas are not impacted at all by these proclamations or these travel bans. So for example, anyone that qualifies for an old visa is still able to apply and obtain that authorization to come to the US and actually work. An old visa is limited for people that have extraordinary ability in their field. Now, usually this is used for people in either in the business field, arts, sciences, or even in sports. And for you to qualify, you really have to show that you've reached the top level of your field in your country. So for example, that you have awards, that you've been featured in different magazines, that you write articles, that you are really an expert when it comes to what you're doing. For a business person, a lot of people think about this visa for a business person, but it can be used for someone that's a manager or someone that's a CEO. For example, if you're a CEO of a company or if you're an executive of a company, and you've been featured in different newspapers in your home country, or you've come up with a different way of doing a license, or you're known for something very specific, even though the other business categories are not available to you, right now, this is the time to look for different opportunities, and this may be one of them. Our performers and athletes, so our musicians, individuals as well as groups, all of the professional athletes, they're still able to obtain visas to come and work in the United States. The investor visas, this is a very important category because this category really helps our small businesses. The E visa is really limited to European countries. You have to have a specific passport to be able to take advantage of the E visa, and you're still able to take advantage of that. So I've listed a couple of things. What's really interesting is, even though you don't qualify for example, the H-1B or the L for this proclamation, if you're physically in the United States, for example, as a tourist, and you decide, you know something, I want to go ahead and change my status to that of one of the categories that are exempt, you will be able to do that, because the exemption is aimed really only for people that are outside of the United States and not people that are here. And something really interesting to take in mind is that Canadians are not really impacted by these exemptions either, because as a Canadian citizen, you don't need a visa in your passport to come to the United States. You're visa exempt. You still need a petition to be filed on your behalf. So if you're a Canadian citizen and you're being hired by someone else to come and work in the US, your employer still has to file the petition for you with USCIS. The petition has to be approved. Once it's approved, then you can come to the US. You don't have to take the extra step like everyone else to go to the consulate, have the visa issued, and then for you to physically come to the United States. So Canadians are a good group of people, for you to understand that if you're trying to hire someone from Canada, you're not going to have to worry about a lot of the visa exemptions that other people have to deal with right now. Okay. So there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of newspaper articles about what's going on with students at this time. So I don't know if you guys saw in the news that the Trump administration basically said a couple of weeks ago that any students that are currently going to school and that they're going to be taking classes virtually will all lose their student visas. As a result, there's been a lot of litigation, especially from MIT and Harvard. And due to that litigation, on July 14th, the Trump administration immigration confirmed that students taking classes online will not be stripped of their student visas. In fact, that students will be given priorities when it comes to coming back into the US. And this includes not only students that currently have a student visa, but also students that are applying for next year to be coming in with a new visa. And this is going to apply to both the F visas for students. F visas are especially for students going to traditional schools, universities, colleges. M visas are those going to vocational schools or trade schools, and then J's are for trainees that are coming in. So in my practice, I have a lot of questions about what is going on here in the US with USCIS. USCIS is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Agency. That's the agency that is really, really in control and adjudicates all of the USCIS and immigration applications. So USCIS is the one that adjudicates I-130s, green card applications. They're the ones who adjudicate TPS applications, etc. So USCIS, due to COVID-19, had made an announcement that they were closing all of their local offices. And that brought a lot of fear and a lot of confusion in the community at large. Sorry, I apologize. Sorry about that. So because of USCIS shutting down their local offices, that brought a lot of confusion to people in the United States and abroad. And what happened, because of the local office closing, a lot of people stopped filing new applications. USCIS kept working. The way that USCIS is set up is that they have central offices where you send in your application. The central offices really process them, make sure everything is okay, then they send it to the local offices. Due to COVID-19, USCIS only closed down their face-to-face interactions with the public so that they could go back and have their shields and have new protocols for COVID-19, but they were still accepting applications. Because of a major drop in applications to USCIS, what happened is now they're running out of money. USCIS is a self-funded agency where they really they survive off of the fees that are being paid by applicants for these immigration benefits. So because of this sudden halt in immigration applications coming in, now we have possible furloughs. The furloughs were initially announced for early August, but there's been hearings this week in DC concerning funding for USCIS, and they've pushed back the furloughs for the end of August. So what's going to happen with USCIS? They're still functioning. What I've seen in my office and other immigration attorneys have also noticed it, a lot of applications are being processed a lot quicker because there's less applications going in. So we're able to get someone on the phone a lot quicker. We're getting receipts sent to us. I have applications, for example, that were taking, let's say, a year and a half before, and I'm noticing they're going through the process a lot quicker because they just have less applications to deal with. A lot of people are still scared to send in their immigration applications, but you really have to understand this is a time to take advantage of it. And this is the time to file an application, especially because USCIS will increase their fees very soon. We don't have a date yet, but USCIS has already gone through the process of submitting a proposal for a fee increase. That proposal has been discussed. They will be publishing the notice. Once the notice is published, we'll have about 30 to 60 days before it's implemented. Just to give you guys an idea, the fee structure will almost double, to be honest. Someone filing for a green card application will have to pay twice as much. Someone filing for an asylum application will actually have to pay a filing fee now. Prior to the fee changes that are coming, filing an asylum application has always been free. There's been no charge for that. So something to keep in mind is if you have a plan for immigration, either for your family or for a business visa, you should take advantage of USCIS having a lower caseload now, and also the filing fees are still the same. I know there's a lot of uncertainty with immigration, but if you have, for example, plans to become a citizen, if you have an opportunity to invest and apply for an investor visa and you qualify for it, if you have an opportunity that you have a job, etc., this is the time to really look into it because more and more changes are coming and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. What's going on with the National Visa Center? The National Visa Center is the agency where once USCIS approves your application for immigrant visas, so for green cards, either for businesses or families, USCIS will send that file to the National Visa Center for them to process it before they send it down to the consulate. The National Visa Center is temporarily reducing its staffing footprint. And they've made it very clear that they're only processing urgent and humanitarian or medical inquiries. So if your case is currently at the National Visa Center, they're still working on it. They haven't shut down the National Visa Center. They're still processing cases. However, they will not respond to emails and inquiries about what's the status of my case, etc. They're only responding to emergency and humanitarian inquiries. And this also ties into what's going on in the consulates. On March 20th of 2020, the State Department, which is where all of the consulates are, they're under the umbrella of the State Department, announced that all of their visa appointments were being canceled, both for green cards, student visas, tourist visas, etc. All of them were being canceled as of March 20th, that they were only dealing with urgent and emergency services, and also that they would be focused on US citizens. On July 14th, they made an announcement that they're resuming services as soon as possible, but it's gonna be based per consulate. So this is really important to understand because not every consulate in each country is gonna have the same issues to deal with COVID. So for example, I've noticed that the US embassy and consulates in Italy are now starting to open, and they're now giving dates for appointments about 2 weeks from now or a month from now for appointments. But consulates in South America are still completely shut down, and they're only taking on cases that have emergencies. So this is the website for the US Embassy in Haiti. So and this is from a day or two ago that I took the screenshot just so that you guys can see. Right now, if you have a pending visa at the US Embassy in Haiti, or you're trying to get in contact with them, they've made it very clear on the website that per the presidential proclamations, they're shut down. They're not issuing any visas that fall into the different proclamations that we spoke about, both the one from April for green card holders and also for business visas if you fall into them. And here, as of March 20th, they've made it clear that they've shut their doors. So the US Embassy in Haiti has yet to say when they're going to start taking on new applications, when they're going to start to take on and schedule new appointments. If you have an emergency, you can still contact them. You're still able to reach out to them to the portal, and you're still able to reach out to them via email so that they can try to help you with any issues that you have. But as of now, the US Embassy in Haiti is definitely shut down, and they're not taking on in-person appointments. So the last topic that I wanted to focus on is, what do you do if you're physically stuck in the United States? And this really varies as to what status that you have. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking, if I came in as a tourist, I'm a tourist, it doesn't matter how I came in. That's not the case, especially now. So if you come in with a European passport, if you come in with an ESTA, right? The way that you go about extending your stay is going to be completely different than if someone came in with a B1, B2 visa. And this is really important for Haitians to understand, because we have a lot of Haitian citizens where some of them travel with a Haitian passport, and that Haitian passport has a B1, B2 visa on it, but they may have family members or business associates who travel with an ESTA because they have either a French passport or a German passport, where they come in without having a physical visa in their passport. If you came in with a B1, B2 visa, and you're physically in the United States, and you're not able to return to your home country because of COVID, or other reasons, you have to file an application with USCIS, and that's the I-539. The I-539 has to be filed as soon as possible. Immigration does ask that you file it at least 45 days before your I-94 expires. Your I-94 is issued to any immigrant who comes in. So when you physically come into the United States with a tourist status, you're given a stay. So you're able to stay in the United States up until a specific date. Usually for a B1, B2, the maximum for a period of stay is 6 months at a time. But if you're coming with an ESTA, you're limited to 90 days. So if you're here on a B1, B2 and you're stuck and you're not able to travel, you want to file with USCIS, your form and also all of your supporting documentations as soon as possible, have that approved before you file. However, if you came in with an ESTA, you're not able to file any forms. You actually have to contact a local USCIS office to get an appointment, an in-person appointment with an immigration officer so that they can give you a satisfactory departure, which basically means they understand that you wanted to leave the United States before your I-94 expired, but you were not able to. And therefore they're gonna allow you, they're gonna extend your I-94 for you. Or you can contact CBP. Each different port of entry in the United States has a different instructions that you have to follow. So for example, in Miami, there's a specific phone number, there's a specific email, there's specific instructions for Miami, which is gonna be completely different than anyone that came in San Francisco, for example. So I hope that, I know I rushed through a lot of the topics. I know that we don't have that much time. I really just wanted to focus on giving you guys just a general idea of where are we right now when it comes to topics that are tied to business immigration post-COVID. So again, the travel bans, the presidential proclamations, for you guys to have a better idea of which business visas are still available to people, even with all of the changes that are taking place right now, and also what's happening at the consulates and what you can expect and what you should do. So thank you so much for your attention. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
There is one in the chat room.
Okay, so here I see a question about if you have TPS and I'd like to adjust my immigration status, is a good time to send the application. So again, yes, you should definitely, one, you want to make sure that you qualify to adjust your status to a green card holder, right? Because you have to meet a lot of, you have to provide a lot of documentation to immigration, and you want to make sure that this is a good time for you to file, not necessarily because of the COVID, but to make sure that you're not going to have any issues after filing. Trump has made a lot of changes with USCIS, where if your application is denied, for example, there's more probability of your case being referred to an immigration court for removal proceedings than it was under the Obama administration. And there's also now an extra requirement to show that you are not a public charge. There's actually a federal court that issued an order yesterday, saying that the Trump administration should not be requiring immigrants to show that they're a public charge. So the answer to your question is, make sure you speak to an attorney to make sure that you qualify to adjust your status at this time, and that they can guide you through the process. But COVID should not be a reason for you not to file an application.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And I wish I can see everybody's on the screen. We want to give Patricia a round of applause for this presentation. That was a lot to pack in this morning, a lot to pack in. But I do have a question, Patricia. You spoke about the business visas that are not subject, and you talk about the O visa and the P visas, right? Can you go over that, just the O visa, the extraordinary ability? A lot of us, I know I spoke with you recently about something like that. For the experts in the different fields, I mean, how far is immigration is looking into the expertise of these people to
Sure.
get them the visas?
So to get ready for a strong O visa application, the first thing you need is the person's resume. And you really want to document all of their accomplishments. With immigration, any case that I'm working on, it's really how do I document and put on paper so that immigration sees that this person qualifies. For an O visa, you have to show that they've been within an industry for a good number of years. They can't be working for 2 years and automatically qualify for an O visa. They want to see that they've been in an industry, that they've sustained a level of having this extraordinary ability. So it's not enough for someone to have an award 10 years ago and an award now. They want to see consistency in the fact that they're being recognized for having this extraordinary ability. And you want to document, for example, what school they went to, their transcripts. You want to document all of the projects they've been in. You want to document all of the awards that they have. What's important with the awards is not the fact that it's an award. What you want to document is what award is it? Why is this award important in this person's country? And why is this award important in this person's industry? So a lot of these applications tend to be very paper extensive because you want to show every single point to immigration so that they don't minimize your application.
And there are no exceptions of any countries or European countries given special exemption or special treatment when it comes to the O visas? Citizens from those countries.
Right. So no. So citizens from the only visa where it's citizenship specific is the E1, E2 visa. The E2 visa is aimed for smaller investors. By smaller, I mean less than $1 million, right?
Okay.
So for you to participate in the E2 program, you have to show that your country has a treaty with the United States where you can come to the US, open up a business, manage the business, and you have to be at least a 51% shareholder. So you have to be in control of the business. So for example, if a US corporation wants to start a venture with a foreigner that happens to qualify for the E2, automatically the foreigner will have to be the majority holder because they have to show that they control the company.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to come in, run the company, and they're able to renew the visa as needed.
Great. Any more questions? If not, I have a last one.
I feel like Andre may have a question.
Huh? Okay. The question that I have, you talked about the folks who got stuck here because of COVID-19 and not able to make it home, especially those on tourist visas and applying for that I-539.
Right.
And we know certain countries have not opened their borders. And you said they have 45 days? Is that what you said?
So, right. USCIS really encourages people to file their I-539 to extend their stay at least 45 days prior to the I-94 expiring. However, they will take into consideration if you were not able to meet that, and they'll also accept your application even after your I-94 has expired.
Okay.
If you're able to explain why you were not able to meet that requirement.
Right.
I have a client, for example, her I-94 was expired for over 2 weeks, and I was still able to get CBP to extend her I-94 so that she could travel back to her home country and come back to the US.
Right. The reason why I asked this is because I know there's some people from different countries who their borders were not open. They were not opening the airports, and they had to change the reopening dates, and that affect the people that got stuck in the US, having to go back to their own countries because their country didn't have an exact time of reopening or exact date of reopening.
So what I've used in those circumstances is I'll use newspaper articles to show the dates, and I'll also go on the US Embassy's website for that country to show, this is what was going on at the time, per the US Embassy in that country. So for example, for Haiti, they had different announcements saying, you know, the Haitian government has announced X, Y, and Z. The Haitian government has announced this is what they're doing. So we were using that to support our extensions.
Excellent. Well,
And
again,
something for people to really also remember is dealing with USCIS can be very frustrating. So one, you have to be a little bit patient if you're going to try to do some of these things on your own. Just calling the 1-800 number, sometimes people don't know what to ask, what to say, where to go. And dealing with CBP is a whole different beast. It's definitely worth, even if you don't hire an attorney, it's definitely worth at least having a conversation so that you really understand what is that risk. A lot of immigrants don't understand what's at risk because they just listen to, well, my cousin said it's going to be okay, so and so had no problems. You really want to get that advice of counsel when you're making a decision on your immigration status.
Okay. And one of the last takeaways I got from your presentation also is with the USCIS, you say even as they're going through the furlough or the temporary closure, that they're still processing applications at a very speedy rate, if I want to use the word.
So from what we don't know what's going to happen once the furloughs actually hit, right? Because right now they've been announcing the furloughs. The furloughs were supposed to start at the beginning of August. Now they've extended it to the end of August. But from my experience right now, cases are being processed a lot quicker just because there's less applications in line.
Okay. Any more questions? Again, we want to thank you.
Yes. I have one. A comment, 2 comments and a question. Patricia, first of all, great job. Very insightful on the immigration. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions regarding this topic, especially even before the COVID. Now with the COVID, it's unbelievable. So thank you again for doing this. The second kind of comment question, do attorneys like yourself who deal in immigration issues, what I would say, have a more direct access to the immigration services? Or in other words, it's always better to hire a lawyer, but in case you can't hire one, what is the value add that an attorney brings to situations?
That's a great question. So immigration keeps changing their customer service, where they no longer have like a separate portal for attorneys, or they no longer have a separate line for attorneys. The value in having an attorney call on your behalf or with you is that we can push through and gets these immigration officers to actually process your case effectively. So for example, I've called USCIS on a case that I have an issue on, and the immigration officer is giving me pushback, and I say, no, you are wrong because of X, Y, and Z. I need to speak to tier 2. I need a call back from the higher level of USCIS to deal with my issue. And they gave me a reference number, and they're able to give me a call back. If someone is calling on their own and they don't realize what their rights are or what the immigration officer should or should not be doing, they may take the answer of the immigration officer, at face value. So I find myself having to fight for my clients because the immigration officers sometimes don't realize what's going on with the case, or they don't want to deal with the case. So they tell you something to get you off the phone. So I really have to, to insist and persist to get what I need to get done for my client. That's on the USCIS side. When it comes to the consulates or when it comes to the National Visa Center, even though they no longer have a special email or special portal, we still know the law. So when we're contacting them, we're saying, this is what was supposed to happen. This is what's going on in the case. We're able to also present the case in a way that it's easier for the officer to adjudicate. What I absolutely love about my job is going to an immigration interview and having it last less than 10 minutes because I know that everything was done properly. I just want the officer to have the packet and to be able to rubber stamp it because they see everything in order, everything is clean, it meets all the requirements, it's highlighted, it's bolded where it needs to be, so it's in and out. But an individual going in on their own may have a harder time even expressing what's going on in their case, yet alone showing that they qualify for the relief that they want.
Understood. Well, thank you. That totally makes sense. And a little what I call something to share, a reminder. Please, everybody, go to the census. Go to your census.com, the webpage. The census is very important in our community. We're noticing that we're undercounted. We're not our communities are not really applying and filling out the census online. So please spread the word. Census 2020, make your vote count. It's important. And please reach out to Hackoff if you have any questions or concerns or need some assistance in filling out the census, or have folks, if you know folks who have problems with it, send them to Hackoff and we'll assist. Thanks.
Again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Patricia. Before we close, I want to acknowledge the presence of former Mayor of North Miami, Attorney Andre Pierre. Andre, so good to have you this morning with us. I appreciate that. And Jean Belizaire with the census, it's so important. I heard this morning on NPR while driving to work that they're closing the census at the end in terms of the physical counting, where they're having rep going to homes, those who then apply online. I heard they're closing that in September instead of October.
That may be the
bad
case.
News.
Yeah, because of the COVID. And even with normally they would do that, the door-to-door helping, but with the spike in cases of COVID again, the Census Bureau, hence why we have a little program. We had masks. Hackoff had masks made up in partnership with two other organizations, FUM and Flick. We're handing out masks. We're distributing to get the message out. People need to get counted and fill out the census. And to our people, we call it recensement. I don't know if you guys remember that. Recensement, for all you Creole speaking folks, for faire recensement, vous faire compter pour. So thank you.
Okay. And I guess I said, Patricia, thank you so much. And we look forward to the next Breakfast and Learn that you, for the members watching and listening to this event today, please stay tuned to Hackoff and make sure you look at Hackoff emails and all of our posting, especially the events and happening that we post every Monday. There's a lot of great information about what's going on in the community, what's going on in the business world, and also great information to help you grow your business that comes out every Monday. And make sure if you're not signed up for it, please go to hackoff.com. www.hackoff.com and sign up for it so you can get this information that comes out every Monday. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who tuned in this morning, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Breakfast and Learn next month. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Just so you know, we're off for August.
Okay, off for August, so that will be September.
September.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, TGIF.